Welcome to the channel, and this is another decade build for my decade build challenge. Well, series, really. It's a challenge for myself. But if you haven't seen the other ones, why not go and check them out? I will provide a link down below as well as in the top right corner. And basically what I'm doing is building 2 builds for each decade starting in the 1890s, because that's when the decade challenge normally starts in. So I thought I would help you guys out with some historically accurate builds. I try my best to be historically accurate. I do a lot of research while I'm building and while I'm doing the commentary. So hopefully you guys learned something new. And yeah, so today is the 1930s, and I freaking love the 1930s architectural styles, because it is Art Deco. Typically, Art Deco was very popular from 1925 to 1941, I think. But yeah, it's one of my favorite architectural styles, hands down. Like, I grew up in Florida, and I had some family in Miami, and the older part of Miami is pretty much all Art Deco. And it's beautiful, and I love it. But there's also a lot of Art Deco in California because, I don't know, it was just a really popular style, mostly for commercial buildings. Not so much residential, but there were quite a few. I wanted to show you a few pictures that you might like so you can get a feel for what I'm trying to go for. So on the left is an example of some lovely people at a dance hall, and on the right is a bathroom typically seen in the 1930s. On the left is some decor items from the 1930s. Bottom right is an example of a residential Art Deco home. So just really, really cool. It's actually, the name Art Deco came from the International Exposition of Decorative Arts held in Paris in 1925 as a showcase for new inspiration of architecture and decor, which it became super popular. The style was essentially one of applied decoration, because during this time, in 1929 is when the Great Depression started. So not a lot of people had a lot of money. Those that did have money wanted to keep costs down. So what they would do is they would be decorative, mostly on the front of buildings, build the buildings and then apply decoration on the building, but not necessarily as they were building. So that kind of kept costs down. Buildings were very embellished with hard-edged, low-relief designs that were geometric, which included chevrons, ziggurats, and stylized floral and sunrise patterns. These types of shapes were inspired by Native American artwork, so that was basically the archetype of the Art Deco style, was Native American stylings and decorations. Some buildings did have expensive handcrafted decoration. Others kind of made do with machine-made repetitive decorations. And to keep costs down, ornamental treatment was often limited to the front of the building, like I said, and Art Deco projects produced really big collaborations between architects, painters, sculptors, and designers, sometimes resulted in complete Art Deco environments like in Miami, and In its day, some of what we now refer to as Art Deco was often called modern or art moderne, which is a term to describe the most advanced design ideas of the 30s through the end of World War II. So they are close cousins. There is a little bit of a difference though. Art Deco and Art Moderne share basically the stripped down forms, but Art Moderne had a horizontal rather than vertical emphasis, rounded rather than angular corners, and little surface ornamentation. Art Deco was first applied to public and commercial buildings in the 20s, although individual homes were rarely designed in the Art Deco style. Architects and developers, especially in the Washington, D.C. area, found that the style adapted quite nicely to apartment buildings. So a lot of the buildings in the Washington, D.C. area in the style are actually still there. So if you ever go there and see this style, I don't know, it's really cool that it's still around. As you can see here, I'm basically, I saw a picture of these pavers and I thought it would be really cool to have them, but using the tiles, like alternating the tiles, leaving one space open, it was too much of a space. So I actually had to paint each individual square. So I hope you guys appreciate it because it was a labor of love. And halfway through, I was like, why am I doing this to myself? But it's worth it. So that's why I'm doing that there. So anyways, for projects on a tight budget, the simple box type of form could be decorated with motifs and embellishments that made a simple structure seem a lot nicer than it was. And it was frequently done with like bands of brick, canopies, copings, usually linear or horizontal forms. And Art Deco materials usually were stucco, concrete, very smooth face stones, and terracotta. Steel and aluminum were also used along with glass blocks and decorative opaque plate glass. Windows were usually, they appear as like punctured openings, so either square or round to maintain kind of like a streamlined appearance for the building. They were often arranged in continuous horizontal bands of glass, which is why these windows here are so beautiful and perfect for this type of style. If you're wanting to go for an Art Deco build, these windows here are absolutely perfect and amazing. So the wall openings were sometimes filled with decorative glass or glass blocks, so it kind of created a contrast of solid and void forms while still allowing light to come into the building, which was kind of important. That's kind of what Art Deco is and what it's made out of. But during this time, like I said before, the stock market crashed in 1929, which pretty much ended the era of prosperity, which had happened in the 20s. A lot of people believe different things, like why the stock market crashed, but it had been kind of brewing for years. And by 1932, many Americans were pretty much fed up with President Hoover and what Franklin Roosevelt later called the hear nothing, see nothing, and do nothing government. So the Democratic presidential candidate, he was from New York. He was a New York governor, and he promised a change. He said, "I pledge myself to a new deal for the American people." And this new deal would use the power of the federal government to try and stop the downward spiral of the economy. Of course, he won that year election, so. But during the Depression, most people didn't have that much money. Of course, the people who did have money prior to this, so the upper class people didn't really get hit too bad by the Great Depression. It was mostly the middle class and lower class citizens of the U.S. that got they were really affected by the Great Depression. So most people didn't have a lot of money, but most people did have radios, and listening to the radio was free. And the most popular shows on the radio were basically comedy shows or musicals, and they helped people to get through their everyday struggles during this time. It was very hard for a lot of people, and the radio and movies really helped people heal and kind of be distracted in a way. So that was really important for America during this time. So this house in particular, I had two Sims in mind for this. I was really looking at Hollywood specifically, so I imagine this house to be in California, somewhere near Hollywood, and I think that maybe a Hollywood starlet lives here with her brother. So that's what I was thinking for this house. The American movie industry, it was very much centered in Hollywood, Los Angeles. And this was because the climate of California was pretty much ideal for outdoor filming. And by the 1920s, about 85% of American movie production was made in or around Hollywood. So if you wanted to be in the movie industry, that's kind of where you had to be. The last silent movie was actually released in 1931, which was pretty much amazing for that time. By 1930, 40% of America's cinemas had sound systems installed. And during the Great Depression, audiences really wanted to have something to relate to during this time because it was so hard. So a lot of social conscious films were produced, and also Disney cartoon films became really popular during this time. Musicals, especially those starring Fred Astaire and Ginger Rogers, they also provided escapism for people. Fred Astaire and Ginger Roger musicals were produced by RKO Studios and included Flying Down to Rio, which was in 1933, Roberta, which was in 1935, Top Hat, which is in 1935 as well, and Follow the Fleet, which was in 1936. Ginger Rogers and Fred Astaire made about a total of 10 musicals together. And what's really amazing is Ginger Rogers actually did everything Fred Astaire did, except backwards and in heels. So, in my opinion, I'm a bigger Ginger Rogers fan. And some other people that became popular during this time were Shirley Temple. She kind of came into her own in movies like Stand Up and Cheer, The Little Colonial, Curly Top, The Poor Little Rich Girl, Heidi, she's pretty famous for Heidi, The Little Princess, those were all in the 30s. Another movie that was produced in the 30s was Gone with the Wind, which received 8 Oscars, including Best Film. Hattie McDaniel, who played Mammy in the movie, she was the first African American ever to win an Oscar. Even though she won an Oscar, unfortunately, she was still segregated from the group and she had to sit at a totally different table. So even during this time, there was still racial tension going on. But yeah, I mean, otherwise, it was kind of like everyone was just trying to come together and get through the Great Depression. World War II didn't really begin until the 1940s. So during the 1930s, it was just kind of like an imminent fear because during the late 30s, Germany was kind of in an unrest and Hitler was just kind of a public figure at this point. Yeah, everyone was just kind of focused on themselves and just kind of getting through day to day. But I imagine that these siblings here weren't really all that worried about the economy. They were doing great. I did notice that at this time, electric stoves were becoming more popular, especially if you were more well-to-do. So I added the little Rinky stove in here. And I also noticed that they had some interesting tile work in the kitchen. Yeah, I added some nice blue in here as well as the orange curtains. So it's a nice little color contrast. So in this area, I thought it might be nice to have a little bar because Prohibition was disregarded by 1930. So the sale and distribution of alcohol was now available to many people, and I'm sure that it was a thing to be celebrated at this time for people that liked to drink. But yeah, so here I'm just putting some detailing out here on the front exterior of the home. I wanted to put these shelves around just for added detail, but I ended up taking those away later because I didn't really like the little thing that is underneath the shelf. But it might be nice for this area to be a carport, kind of, because garages still weren't really a thing at this point. It wasn't really until the 40s that carports or garages were a thing. So I just kind of continued the squares that I had in the pool area to the carport, just so it's the same type of thing. And just added some gates and this sleek car in the carport that they might have had. Another thing I noticed about Art Deco landscaping in general, it's very minimal and very green, especially in California. So there's a lot of palm trees mixed with other trees. So that's kind of what I was going for with the landscaping of this home. This lot is actually in Newcrest. It's the 50 by 40 lot, I believe. So yeah. This house is only 2-bedroom, 3-bath, but there is definitely room to add more rooms if you needed it. If you wanted to download this from the gallery, it is available on there. My @name is Irrelephant7, and there's no CC, so you shouldn't have any problems with that. And yeah, I really, really love this house, though. It's probably one of my favorite homes that I've made. I love it. And if you know, you were wondering what my soul looks like, this house is what it looks like. I actually did play test this house, in case you're wondering, because I normally don't for whatever reason. It's probably just laziness. But I did play test this house. Everything works well. And you'll see when we go upstairs to the master bedroom, which is the Starlet's room. I did do some finagling around with the makeup mirror, and I did some like crazy stuff with that. But it works. I was kind of surprised, but it works. So this room here is kind of an offshoot of the dining room, and I was kind of thinking that this room could be like a private parlor almost, like not as formal of a parlor as it used to be in previous decades, but just kind of like a private room where the men can go to socialize and have a drink and maybe smoke a cigar or something. So that's kind of what I was going for with this little room here. So this is the Hollywood Starlet's room, and I wanted to do something kind of fancy with the vanity, so I looked at some pictures online of 1930s vanities, and they often had these like curtains that would actually kind of frame the vanity, and this like marble type counter almost. So that's what I was trying to do here, was just make it look super fancy. And I did size up some of the curtains, and you can see it if you're looking outside in, but otherwise you can't see it. Like if you're playing and you're upstairs, it looks fine. If you're downstairs, you can't see it through the floor or the ceiling if you're on the bottom floor. But yeah. Also, shout out to Harry. She does this quite a bit. And I think she saw this from someone else, like Sims or something. But it was actually perfect for the 1930s because they, like, padding like this was very popular during this time, like upholstery. So that's kind of what I was doing for the bed there, using those high back padded chairs as kind of like a headboard. So I just used some nightstands to cover the edges of those chairs there so it would look more like a headboard. But yeah, I really like how this room turned out. I think it's very accurate to what a Hollywood starlet would have in her room. And I loved using this mirror on top of the vanity mirrors, just to give it a little extra light and an old-fashioned look to it. So this is the bathroom, or the master bathroom. I'm just going to show you a little bit of what I did here because I really like it. It's very specific to the 30s. The 30s were like the colors pink, blacks, golds, and like a minty or an aqua color were very popular to use during this time. So I decided to go with like a greenish, like teal kind of, and used black with the teal. I really like how it came out. And I also love that this little end piece comes with these counters, and it was so perfect for this style because it's kind of rounded, but it's very symmetrical, and I think that's perfect for this type of style. Just added some little floor details on the bottom there. I kind of wanted to put some type of artwork here, but I decided against it. But yeah, I love how that bathroom came out. I used a lot of the items that came with the vintage stuff pack, especially these doors that came with the pack. So this is the brother's room. I wanted to go for a very rich looking black and gold type of theme for his room. And I like how his room came out too. It's a little irregular, especially in the shape, but everything works there. And yeah, I thought it turned out really nice. Here I put the mirrors behind the kind of wall art sculpture. They used a lot of mirrors during this time as kind of an accent. I really like how this bathroom turned out too. It's very simple. It's just black and white to kind of match what's going on in his room. But I love it. I really do. So this area, I guess it'd be the mezzanine. I may be wrong about that, but this is just kind of a casual seating area, maybe for close friends and family, or if the bottom floor is too crowded, then people can go up here and kind of sit and chat. I really loved these chairs and sofas. I think they came with the base game, but they're really good for this type of style. They're kind of blocky and they have linear forms. But yeah. And now I'm just going to go out here and do a little bit of landscaping. But I think we're almost done with the build. I hope you guys enjoyed it, and I hope you learned something new. But yeah, I'm super excited for next week, and especially to start getting into the 40s and 50s, because that's my favorite. And yeah, thank you guys so much for watching, and I will see you next time. Bye!